Governor Hochul and Mayor Mamdani have announced an additional $1.5 billion in state funding will be added to the city's budget over 2 years.
Yesterday's announcement sounded like a victory. Hochul and Mamdani together announced that $1.5 billion in state funding for New York City over 2 years. $1 billion this fiscal year, $510 million the next, and $510 million of it recurring, meaning it stays in the budget going forward. The breakdown matters. $300 million goes to youth programming. $150 million is restored sales tax revenue that Albany had been keeping for itself. $60 million for public health. And $500 million directed toward shared priorities to be determined. Mamdani himself has argued for months that New York City generates 54.5% of the state's revenue, but only receives 40.5% back. So part of this $1.5 billion is not a gift. It is a partial correction of an imbalance that should never have existed. The Citizens Budget Commission called it good news, but they also said something else, something City Hall did not put in the press release, that this recurring support will widen future state budget gaps, meaning this money has a cost, and somebody will eventually pay it.
Increasing taxes risks alienating businesses who create jobs and wealthy New Yorkers who actually fund a lot of our schools, our cops, our sanitation. So let's dig into all the agencies and find the spending that's not improving New Yorkers' lives and shrink it.
So here's the question nobody answered. Is $1.5 billion a victory, or is it a down payment on a much larger bill that nobody has fully explained to New Yorkers yet? Now, here is where this gets uncomfortable. February 25th, Albany. The DSA, the UAW, and a coalition of progressive organizations are marching to pressure Hochul into including a millionaire tax in the final state budget. The April 1st deadline is coming. This is the moment. This is exactly what Mamdani's movement was built for. And Mamdani told the organizers he will not be there. Two sources familiar with private conversations confirmed it to the New York Times. His spokesperson declined to answer the question repeatedly. His reason, according to those sources, he wants to maintain his relationship with Governor Hochul. Let that sink in for a moment. The mayor who campaigned on taxing the rich, who gave 4 hours of testimony in Albany demanding a millionaire tax, who endorsed Hochul without getting a single commitment on taxes in return, that mayor is now skipping the rally his own movement organized to fight for his own policy. Even inside City Hall, aides were divided. Some worried about angering DSA. Others worried more about angering Hochul. The mayor, caught between both, chose silence. DSA's response was blunt. We don't take direction from City Hall. And one of Mamdani's closest supporters on the NYC DDSA steering committee said simply, I knew there would be moments when we would be heartbroken. So who is actually governing New York City right now? Mamdani, Hochul, or the deal they made between themselves?
Workers are used to fighting between the governor and the mayor. What you're seeing now is a semi-coordinated non-fight to accomplish some of the goals that both the governor and the mayor have. She's trying to get ahead of, rallies and pushes and cornering around tax the rich. On the flip side, he gets all this money that mayors don't usually get to do with and use for programs that he's been campaigning on. It seems like a win for him. It seems like a win for her. And hopefully it's a win for New York State taxpayers as well.
Here is the part that the headlines buried. This $1.5 billion does not come exclusively from New York City. It comes from taxpayers across the entire state of New York. That includes Buffalo, Syracuse, Utica, communities that have their own schools, their own budget crises, their own deteriorating infrastructure. And a state legislator from Western New York pointed this out directly in Albany, that Mamdani's argument that NYC deserves more because it pays more is, in his words, ideologically inconsistent with everything else Mamdani claims to believe. If Manhattan paying more means Manhattan deserves more back, what does that say about the Bronx? Mamdani spent years attacking Eric Adams for refusing to expand a rental voucher program supporting 140,000 of the city's poorest residents. He called it a betrayal of the law. He promised to expand it. He is now blocking that same expansion, quietly, under budget pressure. The movement has not forgotten. The courts have not forgotten. And the 140,000 families waiting for that voucher have definitely not forgotten. Here is what we are not saying. The $1.5 billion is real. The childcare deal is real. Free 3K citywide, the beginning of a 2-year-old program, these are things working New Yorkers will actually feel. Mamdani's defenders will argue that governing requires compromise, that $1.5 billion in hand is worth more than a millionaire tax that Hochul will never sign. Politics is the art of the possible. But here is the uncomfortable truth that even some of Mamdani's allies are now saying out loud. A $7 billion gap still remains.
The budget deficit was lowered from $12 billion to $7 billion, presumably, still leaving $5.5 billion or so in funding to fill that gap.
The millionaire tax is effectively dead this budget cycle. The rally is happening without him. And the movement that carried him into office is now marching to Albany to fight a battle their own mayor quietly walked away from. So we leave you with this. Is Mamdani governing like a mayor who understands the limits of power? Or like a candidate who has forgotten that the people who put him there are still watching? And if the movement goes to Albany without him on February 25th, is that the beginning of the end of something? Or just another Tuesday in New York City politics?
We've also just received information that new data in the state's school aid formula will bring an additional $97 million to New York City on a recurring basis. All of that brings the fiscal deficit down to $5.4 billion. But I want to be clear, $5.4 billion is still a very steep mountain to climb. And there are two paths that we can walk. One that offers long-term stability, and a second one with significant pain that we deeply hope to avoid. The first path repairs the structural imbalance between the city and the state. If we cannot follow this first path, we will be forced onto a much more damaging path of last resort, one where we have to use the only tools at the city's disposal, raising property taxes and raiding our reserves. This second path is painful. We will continue to work with Albany to avoid it. Because as we know, New Yorkers contribute 54.5% of state revenue, but receive only 40.5% back. Once again, I'm calling for Albany to end the drain. At the heart of this path is a property tax increase. This would effectively be a tax on working and middle-class New Yorkers who have a median income of $122,000. These are steps that have been taken before, but only in moments of extraordinary external crisis. Mayor Bloomberg's response to the 2008 financial collapse, and Mayor de Blasio's response to the enormous revenue shortfall caused by the pandemic. We do not want to have to turn to such drastic measures to balance our budget.
Comment below. Is Mamdani making the right call? Or did he just hand his movement a $1.5 billion excuse to stop fighting? Look, if you're tired of watching politicians play games with your city, you're in the right place. We're covering every move, every fight, every lie they think we won't catch. Hit that subscribe button because New York deserves the truth, not the spin. And those videos on screen? They explain so much about what you just watched. Worth your time. See you on the next one.